Okay, I think I just started. All right. So today, guys, if you check out your learning intentions, those have changed. Okay, we're going to learn about the Nazification of Germany. Okay, and also the rise of other dictators like Stalin, Hirohito. We'll talk a little bit about Mussolini as well. And actually, we're going to get to the first invasion. Actually, be the second invasion, because you guys remember Japan attacked who in 1931? Who? China. What region of China? M.
Oh,
Manchuria.
Manchuria. And they renamed it?
I don't know.
Manchester.
Manchuria renamed Manchukuo. Okay, not Manchester. Okay. Now, so that was 1931. We are going to see another invasion in 1935 as I wrap things up today. And guys, we're going to start moving away from talking about Hitler. I'm not quite done, but we're close. And we're also going to look at really what starts to be the Nazis going on the march. Okay, so as we move towards World War II. Okay, so what I want to talk about is these notes right here. There's a question on the test, guys. Okay, there's a question on what enabled Hitler to come to power. And we talked about a lot of this yesterday. First, he tried a coup. He tried to overthrow the government by force. That didn't work. He went to jail, wrote his book, right? The second time around, he's going to try and do it through the electoral process. So remember, Germany has a parliamentary system. There were 11 different political parties. So what he needed to get was the most seats in the German Reichstag. And in 1932, they got 36% of the seats, or 230 seats, right? Remember this from yesterday. And then he had to form a coalition government to get to 51%. And then he was named chancellor. How did he become dictator? Well, they needed a crisis. So the communists tried to burn down the building, the Reichstag, and they had emergency powers in the German Constitution, Article 48, to give him dictatorial powers or martial law, and that's how he did it. Now, the German democratic government, 11 parties, it was weak, it was divided, okay? That opened the door. The economy was awful, right? The German mark, which is their currency, was almost worthless. Millions were unemployed. Goods were scarce, certain goods you couldn't get. So they were in a depression. They were leaderless, hungry, and hopeless. This opens the door for radical ideas to break into a system. That's what happens. Hitler used the Jews as a scapegoat, somebody to blame for their problems. Also, that other big target was the Treaty of Versailles, the one that they said was a stab in the back to the German people. Now, the propaganda, guys, and the speeches and the rallies, if you stayed awake in the last video, they showed like torch-lit processions. You know, they would do these at night. And it was kind of a spectacular thing. Big banners with the swastika and everything. And everything was about the glory of the German people, bringing them back to their rightful place in the sun, that sort of thing, okay? And so it was a lot of us versus them type of mentality. It's us against the world, okay? I'm a coach, so like if I'm giving a pregame speech, we're playing Maze tomorrow, all right? Or we're playing Capon tomorrow. Actually, I try not to get my guys too up for Capon, just like, we're better than they are. Just do your job, you'll be fine. But if we're playing somebody like Maze, you know, let's get a little bit fired up, you know, and I'll tell some stories about Maze and stuff like that, and you know, try and get them angry at Maze. Okay, so we come out, we punch them in the nose. Okay, and let's go. Okay, so this is the type of thing they're doing here. Now, respectable Germans, like your average German that didn't get caught up in this whole Nazi thing, guys. They were intimidated by it. Like, if you stood up against the Nazis, they'd knock you down type of thing. They were thugs. They would beat their opponents. They would assassinate their enemies. You know, the commies and the Nazis are fighting in the streets. They're wearing these brown shirts. They're thugs. They're like mean. They're cruel. Okay, unless you're one of them. Okay. Now the concentration camps, guys, will become notorious as time goes on. But the first ones, I think I might have mentioned this yesterday. The concentration camps weren't just for the Jews at the beginning. It was for anybody that was a political opponent against the Nazis. Anybody that was anti-Nazi, Catholics, Protestants, anybody. Okay, now what the Nazis really wanted the Jews to do at the beginning was just leave. They wanted them to leave Germany. Okay, and some did. You guys have all heard of Albert Einstein? Everybody's heard of Einstein? Yes? Okay, he's a German Jew. He got out of the country before Hitler took over. Okay, and came to the States. Some people could get out, some people couldn't. Some didn't want to leave. They're like, this will blow over. These Nazis, yeah, they're crazy, but nothing really bad is going to happen, right? Right? Yeah. So, guys, so eventually, guys, a lot of Jews are going to be sent to concentration camps. And then later on, death camps. Okay, and there is a difference. Okay, and I'll get to all of that. All right, and then I just have this line in here. They set up the German Christian church to serve the master race, to serve the Nazis. Now, not only the church. Like, say you're a priest or a pastor, you had to be careful about what you preached about. There was always, Nazi party members in the pews listening. There's always somebody listening. And so they had to be very careful. But guys, when I talk about the Nazification of Germany, I'm talking about every segment of society. So the church, culture, art, music, okay, media, everything, schools, everything was Nazified. There's a German term called Gleichschaltung, which means equalizing, creating everything is the same under Nazism. So, for instance, you guys have all heard of the Hitler Youth. You heard of the HJ, the Hitler Youth? It kind of begins to replace school. I mean, now they had schools, but the teachers had to use the Nazi curriculum, and they had to be members of the Nazi teacher organization in order to teach. Now, this is a different type of school than you would be used to. Now, we're talking about intensive indoctrination. What Hitler wants is unquestioned loyalty of his people. That means of his children as well. This is the fatherland. The Russians call their country the motherland. The Germans call theirs the fatherland. Okay, and who is the leader? The Führer, that is Hitler. So in the schools, guys, they had to follow this curriculum. Now, they didn't study the same types of things that we study. They studied nationalism, racial science, racial ideology. There was no difference of opinion allowed in schools. Okay, so I just want to go ahead and tell you guys right now, if you ever have a different opinion than I do when I say something, if you want to speak out and challenge what I say, I'm okay with that. I want you to be able to think for yourself. Okay, now I might give you something back. You know what I mean? You guys want to have a discussion or debate about something, I'll give it back. Okay, I'm not afraid of you. Okay, not intellectually. You know what I mean? Why would I be afraid of a debate? Right? So, they also taught Greek culture. They taught all about military heroes. And every disaster in history, they blamed on the Jews. Something bad happened, it was the Jews. Okay, this is what they're teaching. Now, once Hitler Youth came about, and Hitler Youth came about even before Hitler took over. There was about 100,000 people in the Hitler Youth before he actually came to power in 1932. And so by 1936, Hitler Youth became mandatory for all kids. Now, it starts about the age of 10 for the boys and the girls. For the boys, it goes 10 to 18, the first 4 years, intense indoctrination. So you really learn to like worship Hitler and the state of Germany. Hitler and Germany are one and the same. Okay? So if you went home, you're 13 years old. You went home, you're sitting around the dinner table, and your mom or dad starts bashing on Hitler. Guess what the kids do? They report their parents. Now, Hitler Youth will replace family and school eventually. Okay, so from 14 to 18, after they're indoctrinated, they learn all kinds of things like how to repair engines. They learn how to march. They learn how to shoot weapons. They learn about aeronautics, about, learning to fly planes, these sorts of things. Okay, that's what the boys do. Now, the girls are different. They go from 10 to 14, and it's called Jungmodell. And at 10 to 14, they start to teach young girls, they teach them homemaking skills, like how to cook, sew. They also teach them things like first aid, how to be a mother, these sorts of things. Because at 15, ladies, you are expected to marry and begin to have children for the fatherland. Now, they had contests. The more kids you had, the better. If you had a certain number of kids, and a certain number of those kids were boys for the fatherland, you actually got to have dinner with the Fuhrer, Adolf Hitler. Okay, he would take you out to dinner to celebrate. Okay, they needed more Aryans. They needed more kids. And guys, once the war starts, 39, they really ramped that up. Now, guys, we're talking strict here. From 15 to 17, married. There's no premarital sex, guys. Drugs and alcohol are out. This is a very strict, rigid society. Okay. So after you become a mother and start having, 2 or 3 children, at 18, they have what's called Glaube and Schönheit, which is faith and beauty. And this is more like, physical fitness activities for young mothers and so forth. You remember, you guys learned about Sparta. It's kind of a little bit of a Spartan type culture here, okay? Where everybody's physically fit, everybody's beautiful, everybody's strong, everybody's smart. Well, they're not so smart because they're not really learning how to think. They're learning how to take orders. So basically, through this Nazi curriculum, guys, it's anti-intellectual. They don't want you to think for yourself. They want you to listen and obey and be committed to them. Does that make sense? So basically, they raise a generation of idiots that don't know how to think for themselves. Now, guys, there's some really good things to talk about here with education. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what's called a classical education. There's a school here in Wichita called the Classical School. Have you heard of that? Okay, it's out east, but they really focus on reading, thinking. You're talking about things like Aristotle, Socrates, really the classics. There's and before the 1920s, most of our schools, you didn't have grades in the beginning. Like when you were in elementary and middle, there were no grades. It was just about learning. It was about the wonders of learning. Okay, so what the world around, learning about the world around us. So chemistry, biology, these sorts of things that you just like, oh, this is how things work. Same with mathematics, arithmetic. This is how things work. It's an ordered system, right? It's really kind of cool. I mean, I'm not good at math, but the way math works with how God created everything is really interesting. So it's more of a study of wonder of the things around us. And that's how you learn. Today, we're much more stringent. And if you think about, guys, all of the inventions that have come out of the Western world, okay, the things, and you think about some of the greatest inventors, like they didn't even finish school. A lot of them didn't even finish high school or dropped out of college because they didn't need to go to college. They already had these ideas. They had plans, and they figured things out, and they work things out on themselves, on their own. Okay, that's good. Like being able to have academic freedom. Not everybody taught the exact same thing. So if you take this class from me, or you take it from Mr. Willis, he's going to teach you different things than I'm going to teach you. And I told him I'm the department chair. Okay, so I'm like, listen, I want you to teach what you think's important, what you're passionate about. And Willis is a little bit more of a religious guy than I. You know what I mean? Like he's into some stuff. And I'm like, that's cool. He's a Catholic convert. You know how those converts are. They're like really into stuff. You know what I mean? So he's gonna take a little bit different angle at it. I'm kind of a military history guy. You haven't figured that out yet. Okay, so I like that, and I like the political side of things as well. So that's what I focus on. So that's academic freedom, and then you guys can read whatever you want, study whatever you want, and so forth. So I think it's dangerous to get into these boxes that we put ourselves in. In fact, I really don't like the fact that Bishop Carroll and the Catholic schools follow what the state does. You guys have to do the state assessments and so forth. You know what I mean? I'm like, listen, we do a better job at education than the public school. Why are we following what they're doing? Why don't we do what we do? Let's do us. But, you got to be recognized by the North Central accreditation to say that your diploma means something so that you can go to a state college. You know what I mean? Does Collegiate care about that? No, they don't do it. They don't follow the state of Kansas. They do their own thing. And you know what? Harvard doesn't care. All right, back to this. Okay, so hey, listen. Every aspect of society is controlled. Okay, I have Teen in my 0 hour, right? I'm talking to him this morning. I'm talking about this with Vietnam today. Okay, so everything that is printed in the newspaper goes on the radio, goes on television. Every book that is published has to go through the government before the Vietnamese people can see it. There's the Ministry of Propaganda. Okay, and so this is what the Nazis do. Everything has to be approved by Joseph Goebbels and the Ministry of Propaganda. Okay, now I'll tell you this: during World War II in this country, we had something not called the Ministry of Propaganda, but the Office of War Information, which told the newspapers what they could print, the news what they could do, and Hollywood, which Hollywood continued during the war. So any movie made during the war had these rules on it. Americans always had to be portrayed as the good guys in the movie, okay? And the Americans always had to win in the movie, okay? Probably the most famous movie that came out during World War II was Casablanca. You guys heard of that, Casablanca? It's one of the top five movies ever made according to historians. Casablanca. And I'll touch back on that in a little bit. But anyhow, yeah, there's that has to be woven into it. And guys, all of our soldiers, when they were overseas, if they're sending letters home, you didn't seal the envelope because you're going to have to send a letter home. They're going to open that and they're going to read what you're writing home. And if there's anything that they don't want the enemy to find, like if the mail gets intercepted, they take a razor blade and they cut out sentences that they feel are unsafe to get out to the public. Okay, so everything is censored during the war. Okay, now we tend not to have that today too much, but there's been some of that censorship. And I think I've probably brought it up with you guys when I get angry and start ranting about things like this. Like, I don't know. When they told us if you take the booster shot or you take the shot, it'll stop the spread of the virus. Right? And then if you disagreed with that, they took you off of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and everything else. And who was telling the companies to do that? The government was telling them to do that, to censor your speech. Now, Facebook can do whatever the hell it wants. It's a private company. If they don't like what you say on their platform, they can take you down. Yes? But for the government to contact these individuals and say, please take these people down, this is disinformation. My ass, it's disinformation. It was the truth, and people being censored at the behest of the government. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is wrong. State of Missouri, the Attorney General has sued and won against the Biden administration for doing this, for reaching out to Twitter and Facebook and others and trying to cancel people's speech. They said, the court said, President Biden, you can't do that anymore. So, is there more disinformation on the web? Yeah, probably. But if we're not smart enough to figure out what's real and fake, that's something we got to do, guys. I think I told you, this is kind of scary, not knowing what's real and what's fake. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, those companies, Zuckerberg, Musk, those people, they need to have people that kind of fact check some things. And if it's out there, it's a lie, it's fake, trying to tell us. Okay? And that's a good thing. But at the same time, the government shouldn't be in the business of doing that to people. Okay. All right. I'm done with the Nazis for now. All right. Let's go on to how about Black Rose? Let's talk about some other mass murderers. Huh? Yeah. How about some blood for a backdrop? Yeah. Red blood cells. You guys know who that is? That's Uncle Joe. Uncle Joseph Stalin. Guys, you don't have to write all this down, okay? Okay, so pictured here, yes, is Joseph Stalin. Some people refer to him as Uncle Joe. Okay, now you might remember Vladimir Lenin was the first leader of the Soviet Union once they became communist. He's going to die. Okay, natural causes. He's not assassinated or anything. Okay, now Stalin is chosen by the Communist Party in Russia to be the new leader of Russia. Now, guys, stay with me for a second. You're writing all this crap down? Are you writing all this down? Okay, well, listen to me. Okay, listen. In China today, in Vietnam today, these are still communist countries, right? A very small number of people are members of the Communist Party. I asked Tim today, I said, are your mom and dad members of the Communist Party? He laughed at me. He said, no. Okay. If they were, he would probably, Tim would be very rich. Okay, because if you're a member of the Communist Party, it comes with benefits. Membership has its benefits. And you get to choose the leader. Okay, now, oftentimes, if they don't like the leader, they can replace him. It's not the people, it's just the ones in the party, that small group. You with me? Stalin is one that is chosen, but he will not be stepping down for any reason. You understand? He's one that becomes like a dictator, an authoritarian, right? There are other Russian leaders under the Soviet Union that came and went. That one's not leaving. So anybody that even threatens Joseph Stalin, you know what happens to them? They're taken out. Hitler did the same thing. So like they called it the Night of Long Knives. So shortly after Hitler took power, a lot of people helped him get to power. And then he said, you know what? This person, they may want my job. So in the Night of Long Knives, they took out like 200 Nazis, just killed them all, that Hitler thought might be a threat to him. kind of like, let me give you another example. Let's say I had an assistant coach that really wanted to be the head coach, okay? And I'm like, I think this guy wants my job. You know what I mean? And so he goes to the athletic director and he starts talking and saying bad things about me. Huh? Yeah? He's trying to stab me in the back. Okay? No. I'm taking you out. Okay? Now, none of my coaches want to be the head guy. Okay? Which is fine. Now, if I had a young guy that wanted to be a head coach one day, I'm like, yeah, man, let's groom you, and then you can go coach somewhere else because you're not taking my job. Okay. Now I'm really waiting for that guy. I really like to see, I had a guy, and he was teaching here. He's a fresh. He taught his first year here. Studied history in college. I'm gonna go be a teacher and a coach. He's my pitching guy. He played for me in 05. And oh man, he's a good-looking dude, like 6'4", blonde, got that big jaw. I mean, the girls. I mean, he taught sophomores. They're like, oh my God, Mr. Woodard. Yes. Mr. Woodard. You guys know Austin Woodard? Yeah, he married this beautiful blonde woman, and they have a bunch of beautiful blonde kids. Okay, he's a hunk. All right. Yeah, no, like the girls were fawning on him, you know what I mean? But he stayed for 1 year. He's like, I'm getting married, and I'm gonna have kids, and this is what you're paying me? No. He taught for 1 year. He would have been a great coach. He was really good. I don't know. Anyhow, why am I talking about it? Okay, so
What do you go do after?
he works for Mark Allen. You know Hayes Allen? Big donkey?
Yeah.
Big donkey? Big donkey.
Okay.
Donkey. He works for his dad. As do several of my other former players.
What is it?
It's some kind of pipeline business. I don't know exactly what it is. But Austin's doing really good there. And he's being a good Catholic and having a bunch of kids. Okay. Donkey. All right. All right. So, guys, the Soviet Union. I got this stuff off a website called killtally.com. Yeah. Kill tally for Stalin, approximately 20 million, including 14.5 million needlessly starved to death. Remember when we talked about communism, there's no private property. So you used to own the farm and you worked the farm. Now you work the farm, but you don't own the farm and you don't get to keep the proceeds. Those are all taken by the government. Guess what happens? There's no profit motive. People don't work. People starve. You're running the farms from Moscow, telling them what to plant, when to plant, how to plant, when to harvest, all this stuff, and it all falls apart, and you have massive starvation. This happens in China as well. Millions of people starving to death. Famine. Okay? Then at least 1 million executed for political offenses. At least 9.5 million more deported, exiled, or imprisoned in work camps, with many of an estimated 5 million being sent to the Gulag archipelago. Where is the Gulag? Where is the Gulag? Siberia. Up here, baby. The frozen tundra. Okay? Now, when I say political offenses, you've all heard this word before, this term. Political correctness, yes? You know what I mean by political correctness? Like, I don't want to say something that's going to offend somebody, right? Because somebody might have really soft feelings. And if I say something that's offensive to somebody, I might get canceled. You guys are familiar with cancel culture? Being canceled? Are you aware of this? Okay, good. Now let's talk about that, because it bears a striking similarity to Joseph Stalin's reign of terror. Okay, listen, I was on Twitter yesterday, and there was this woman that is a voice actress. She's a voice actor, you know what I mean? Like, they have these cartoon shows and they have voice acting, right? And she's a Jew. And she spoke out really strongly against Hamas and the Palestinians about what happened last Saturday. She found out on Twitter that they were holding auditions for her role on this show that she's the voice actor for. She was canceled for what she said about what happened in Israel. This is how we do it in this country. We destroy people's careers. They don't go to jail. Now I have over 800 or 700 videos on my YouTube channel. You could comb through those videos and find at least 5 or 10 fireable canceling events that took place in my videos. No question. I offended somebody. Okay. So you get canceled. Well, I got a new saying. I heard this from Candace Owens. I don't know if you know who Candace Owens is. But Candace Owens said this to somebody that was really being a wimp. And she said, you know what? Life is hard. Get a helmet. Or as I like to say, grow some frickin' skin. Don't be so pathetic. Don't be so soft. Thicken up your skin a little bit. So what? Somebody offended you. Get over it. Offend them back if you want to, or turn the other cheek. Okay? But you have the right to offend me. And I have the right to offend you. Now, as a Christian, I'm not going to go around trying to hurt people's feelings. But I will tell you the truth and what I believe to be the truth. And if that offends you, well, I'm sorry. Get a helmet. Is that not funny? I just think it's funny. Life is hard, get a helmet? No? Okay. What?
After that, she said, I'm too pregnant for you.
Yes. Oh, you saw that. Okay.
Hey, John.
You're on top of that. Is she on your Instagram? You follow her on Instagram or something?
No, I saw it on TikTok.
TikTok?
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's good to get a little Candace Owens in there. She's all right. She's all right. Now, so how about Bill Maher? Bill Maher, he's got a show called Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher. It's on HBO. He used to be on regular TV, and then he said something that offended people, and so he got fired. He got canceled, and now he's on HBO.
What was it?
It was after 9/11. You know, the hijackers that committed the acts of terror, flying the planes and so forth. People use this term a lot of times, like those people were cowards. The people that did this were cowards. And he's like, well, actually, if you think about it, they're not really cowards. Like, they just killed themselves for what they believed in. I don't know if you call that cowards. Oh, well, you can't say that. You can't say that. Okay. Now, I disagree with 70% of what Bill Maher says. About 30% of the time, he gets it right. Okay. And lately, he's been getting it right a lot because he's looking at they're going crazy. Okay, it's crazy town. It's woke town. You know what I mean? And he's pointing it out like it's so absurd. Okay, here you go. I got one for you. All right, this is in the news. This is real. Okay, so you guys have heard of the Health and Human Services Department. So you have the Treasury Department. You have Department of the Interior, like Harold Ickes guy, right? And then you have the Defense Department. So Department of Health and Human Services. The secretary is a woman named Rachel Levine, who is a man that dresses like a woman. You understand? Okay, he's got gray hair. He's got these, black rim glasses. It's her. So I'll call her Rachel. Okay, she's Rachel. But Rachel's a guy, and biological. They just passed a rule at Health and Human Services. He did, that says you have to use the pronouns of the 80,000 people that work in the Department of Health and Human Services. You are not allowed to misgender somebody, or you can be fired. Now, this has happened on some university campuses where professors refused to call somebody by a gender that was not their biological sex. They were fired. There's been 2 cases. These professors sued, claiming that there was a violation of the religious rights to fire them for having to call somebody something they weren't. First Amendment of religion and speech. You could throw that in there, okay? Guys, listen, if you're a Christian, you have certain beliefs, you're allowed to stay with those beliefs. Also, if you're a Christian, if you know somebody that wants to be called something different than what they actually biologically are, and you want to call them that so that you don't hurt their feelings, you can do that too. You know what I mean? Some of you may have friends like this already. I don't know. You may know somebody at work like this. I don't know. Okay? And if you want to be kind to them, and they want to be called that, then you can call them that. But you can't be forced to. Does that make sense? Can't be forced to. And the courts have stood by that. All right? But let's say you lose your job with Health and Human Services because you misgender somebody. I don't think so. That shouldn't happen. Okay? That's kind of Stalin-esque, if you ask me. Okay? So if you criticize Stalin, you guys have heard of the KGB? The KGB is the secret police. And in East Germany, it was called the Stasi, okay, which was communist East Germany after World War II up until 89. Guys, the secret police, you don't know who they are. Quick story. So when we went to China in 2005 to adopt Lily, actually it was 2005, we were with 13 other families from the United States that went to adopt a Chinese girl. Okay, they were from all over Florida, Texas, New York. You know, we were the heartland people. Okay, and so the first week we spend in Beijing, the capital. China wants you to spend money there while you're there, so you're there for 2 weeks. Okay, so we did all the the tourist things. We went to the Great Wall of China. I climbed up it. It was February, it was cold. And then we went to the Forbidden City. And while we had a tour guide for the Forbidden City that spoke English. Okay, and guys, it was during the Chinese New Year. So a lot of Chinese people were also doing the same things we were doing to the tourist things. And the Forbidden City is one of those things. And so we're going around and stopping at different buildings, and the lady's explaining to us in English what's going on, what this place was, significance and everything. And then this woman walks up into our group. She's Chinese, obviously. Okay. She's got, long black straight hairs, Asian people do. Okay. And she's wearing this black leather coat, like down to the ankles. Okay. She's got these boots on, these black boots on, and she's just got this stern look on her face. And she's like, it's all white people, okay, and our tour guide, and then this woman joins our group for like 30 minutes. And I'm like over here talking to this other guy. I'm like, dude, who's the dragon lady? Okay, I think she was probably secret police. I think she was listening to what the tour guide was saying. Okay? Yeah. Okay? You don't know who the secret police are, guys. It could be your next door neighbor. It could be your aunt, your uncle, your brother, your sister, your wife or husband. Guys, in East Germany, the Stasi, the secret police, when communism collapsed there, they had records on millions of East Germans, like intelligence records, that people had reported to the government. Well, they opened those files. So when the Cold War ended in East Germany, you could go into the government files, the Stasi files, and find out if they had a file on you, like they were spying on you or not. Okay, no doubt. some of my Twitter communication, I would be spied on. Okay? Now, you could find out who was spying on you. Literally, guys. There were wives spying on their husbands and vice versa. Next door neighbors spying on people. This ruined a lot of relationships. Like, people found out, these people reporting to the government on them. Okay, that they thought were their friends. All right. It's like, it's crazy. This stuff is nuts, guys. Okay. I am big for free speech. Listen, this is the most important thing. If you get anything from this lecture, we must defend people who disagree with us and their right to speak. If we try and shut down somebody else's speech because we disagree with it, somebody will shut down our speech. You understand? In this school, if you're a conservative, you're a pro-life, hardcore Catholic, you fit in just well. Now, take those same beliefs to Lawrence, Kansas, and go to college there. Are your beliefs going to be accepted like they are here? No, they are not. In fact, you will be called all kinds of nasty things because of your beliefs, especially as a Catholic. You understand that, right? Now, will you stand up for your beliefs when your professor starts bashing on your beliefs in your church? Or will you just kind of keep your mouth shut and get your A and move on? You guys know Mrs. Bybee? Yeah, she went to K-State. She caused all kinds of trouble up there. Like some of the stuff her professors were saying, she freaking called them out on. Okay? She stood up. I thought it was pretty cool when I heard some of those stories. Any of you guys have her for class? She's back. You should ask her about that. Tell her Mr. Ebrard was talking about you, about how you stood up to some of your professors. Ask her what that was about. Okay? That's some of the stuff that, like pornographic stuff they're talking about in class and like other stuff. Okay. All right. Sorry. Moving on. Okay. This is Prince Yasuhiko Osaka. I mentioned to you guys a while back about the rape of Nanking. This is where 250,000 civilians were raped and murdered as the Japanese went into China. This is the Emperor of Japan. His name is Hirohito. Now, Hirohito is a young emperor, but he is thought by the Japanese to be a descendant of the sun god. So he is a demigod of some. He's partially a god. Okay, this is Hideki Tojo. He will come about in 1940. This is the guy responsible for planning the attack at Pearl Harbor. Okay, this of course is Benito Mussolini. If you look up the word thug in the dictionary, there'll be a picture of this guy in it. Okay, he's a thug. Now, unlike Hitler, he's not an ideologue. Hitler had an ideology. Mussolini is a political opportunist. You ever see somebody do this? Stick their finger in there, see which way the wind's blowing? That's Mussolini. Okay, whatever's going to make him more powerful and more popular, that's what he's going to do. Okay, it's not an ideology. It's all about power. Okay, now, about 400,000 Italians will die during the war. And as I go to the next slide, 30,000 Ethiopians will be killed by Italian troops with the invasion of Ethiopia. And I'm down to 3 minutes, and I was going to quit early today, and I'm not. So real quick, let me show you this slide. All right, so Japan, 1931, Korean Peninsula here, they want to invade China. We all know about that. 1935, this is Somalia here, the Horn of Africa. It is, at the time, Italian Somaliland. Mussolini wants to try out all his new modern weapons. He's got new tanks, he's got new aircraft, he's got bombers, he's got new machine guns. He needs somewhere to try it out. He's going to invade. Now, this is Haile Selassie, the president of Ethiopia. This is Haile Selassie at the League of Nations, begging the world for help. The Italians are about to invade my country. Will you please help me? He's asking for help from anybody. because Ethiopia cannot defend itself against a modern army. They literally have tribesmen with spears and swords, very few guns. There's only one plane in the whole country of Ethiopia, and it's this guy's plane. Most people in Ethiopia have never even seen an airplane before. And they're about to get attacked. Guess who's going to come to the aid of Ethiopia? Britain? No. They don't want war. France? No. They don't want war. The United States? No. We are what? That I word. Isolationist. Good. Thank you. We're not getting involved. So he begs the whole world for help and nobody comes. That's going to send a loud message to other dictators. Yes? Like nobody's going to do anything. We have free reign. All right? So, this is like what's going on in Israel right now, guys. If Iran wants to get involved, you're probably going to see the United States get involved, and they know that. That's probably the only thing preventing them from not getting involved. And that's the way it's been for the last 80 years, guys. Since World War II, we've always had people's back. And now we're $33 trillion in debt because of it, in part. That's our role. We're the superpower. We believe in democracy and freedom and so forth. And so we stand tall as that beacon for the rest of the world. They look to us. And if we don't stand up to these evil dictators, what happens? Yeah. No. But they are an ally of the United States. Not unless we're attacked. We get attacked? Yes. Now, what Iran said is that if they get involved, it will be on many fronts. That just doesn't mean in Israel. Many fronts means other places. The Persian Gulf, where our ships are, oil ships, cargo ships, or even in the United States. We've talked about Hezbollah. Okay, they're here. They're here in the country already. Okay. Two real quick things, fun facts. Ethiopia is the only country in Africa that was never colonized by European power. And number two, you guys know the Ark of the Covenant? We don't know where it is. Some people think it was taken to Ethiopia.